Hello everyone, I hope you're enjoying the start of your Easter break. I just wanted to make a quick video to show you an example of a functionalist, a completed functionalist 25 marker. It's a grade exemplification from AQA and it's an A grade essay. Now I'll explain as we go along how you can improve on it. I'll also talk about sort of strengths with the structure and with the wording of the essay, and hopefully you can give it a go yourself. If you want any of your answers live marked like this in a video sent to you, you're more than welcome to do so, and I can do so in the second half of the Easter break. Okay, so I'm essentially going to read through it, so if you want to put some subtitles on, that's fine, and I'll make some comments as we go along. It's a good essay. I'd probably give it 18 to 20. I think the examiner might be slightly harsher. The first thing to say is the length is very, very good, and the structure works as well, apart from at the very, very, very end. There's one thing that we haven't gone through yet, which is the application of the knowledge Mary argument to functionalism, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory given what we've studied so far. So I shall begin. All right. So the question, this is from 2020, does functionalism give a convincing account of mental states? The person's written no here, lovely stuff, and I haven't included it in the video, but they made a really quick plan as well. So they've answered the question straight away, and I'll read on and then pause when I'm to make a comment. So, functionalism doesn't give a full and convincing account of mental states. While it does have advantages over some other physicalist accounts, it is unable to account for qualia and hence allows examples such as China brain to be classified as having mental states. A solid introduction does exactly what an introduction should do. First section. Functionalism is a theory of mind that claims that mental states are multiply realizable, such as that they are functional states, which is the disposition towards and causal connection between a particular set of sensory and mental inputs, which lead to a particular set of behavioural and mental outputs. E.g., my mental state of pain can be reduced to functional states, which leads to the input of a sharp needle going into a finger, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll pause there. That's incorrect. Can be reduced. It's not about reductionism. And I will also say about this first section, it's outlining and explaining what functionalism is. Now, if you want to do that, that's fine. I would say it needs to be shorter than this. So the introduction to functionalism needs to be shorter. There's lots of explanation here, that's fine, but you don't have a huge amount of time. So if you want to introduce the theory you're discussing before evaluating it, you can, but it needs to be shorter. Okay. So it starts, the evaluation starts here. So here we go. Functionalism accepts we cannot analyse mental states without making reference to other mental states. Therefore, it gives a better account of mental states than behaviourism, which runs into the problem that we are unable to fully analyse mental states individually. Okay, great start. Start with a strength. I love that. Let's move on. Furthermore, functionalism is multiply realisable, so it's agnostic about what sort of substance is minded. This solves the chauvinism of mind-brain type identity theory, which, due to types of mental states being equal to types of brain states, it is required to have the same brain state in each case for the same brain state to be produced. I'll pause there. Remember, functionalism, the strengths of functionalism are what are called negative strengths, in the sense that they are strengths by referencing the weaknesses of other theories. Okay, so that's the best way to go to start the essay. It's better than MBTIT and it's better than behaviourism. I'll read on. This runs into the problem that as animals and aliens have different physiology than us, MBTIT claims that they do not have the same mental states as us. This is chauvinistic because our commonly belief animals also feel the mental state of pain like ourselves. Functionalism solves this issue convincingly, As long as the animal and alien have the same functional state, which leads to a certain set of inputs to a certain set of outputs, they have the same mental state as us. Functionalism also then takes into account empirical evidence that after the loss of a particular mental state, e.g. belief, due to brain damage, we are able to recover by using a different part of the brain to form that mental state again. Functionalism accounts for this by stating a new part of the brain has taken on the functional economy of the part that has been damaged. So functionalism is a convincing account of mental states so far. That's a key addition. Adding so far means that you're not contradicting what you've put in your introduction. So functionalism is a convincing account of mental states so far. Now you could say so functionalism solves these issues, blah, 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 blah. But don't say that functionalism is convincing because that contradicts the introduction. Okay, all good so far. I'll read on. A weaker criticism, evaluation, ongoing judgment, that's what I love to see. A weaker criticism against functionalism is Jackson's Mary's Room, due to the inability of functionalism to account for phenomenal properties such as qualia. I'll pause there. This is the argument we haven't yet studied, but it's pretty self-explanatory here. So we will go through it in class, but as I say, it's pretty self-explanatory. Immediate ongoing judgment words here. That's what I want to see. The argument is as follows. Premise 1. Mary has never seen the colour red, but has learnt all the functional facts about the colour red. Premise 2. If functionalism is correct, then all that exists about colour is functional facts and nothing else. Premise 3. Consider Mary viewing red for the first time. We will be inclined to believe she learnt something new after viewing it, despite learning all the functional facts about the colour. Conclusion 1. Therefore, there is more to mental states, colour perception, than a functionalist account of it. Conclusion 2. Functionalism cannot give a full account of mental states. Fantastic. That's exactly the argument. Now it's worth looking back at the video and perhaps making a note of that. This argument draws on how there seems to be an intrinsic property with qualia, but functionalism is unable to account for this. The argument is seemingly in line with common sense that we cannot truly understand what it is like to see colours without experiencing it for ourselves. However, functionalists can easily respond to this. Qualia only seem to have an intrinsic property which cannot be accounted for in functional reduction because we are not currently aware of all the functional facts to do with colour perception. Once we have discovered all the... don't know what that word says. Then Mary sees colour for the first time. She would not have learnt anything new. Qualia of red is only a shortcut to a larger functional account of seeing colour. It's all a bit wordy here. I think you probably might have lost sight of it. That needs to be shorter. It needs to be clearer. So this is the sort of conclusion part of the argument response judgment. This is a strong response due to the rapidly increasing advancement in our scientific knowledge of colour vision. Now that's what I like. That's your judgment. That's how to end a section. Mary's Room assumes that by our current knowledge of colour vision, that Mary must learn something new, but our current knowledge is not the full functional account. All right. However, it's true that functionalism isn't able to account for qualia, which is the key part of what we consider mental states to contain. I'll pause there. Please include breaks in your answer, just so it's easier to read. You might find this difficult to follow, but you need to include line gaps between each argument, response, and judgment. I'll read on. The strongest criticism, excellent ongoing judgment. The strongest criticism against functionalism takes the form of the China brain, which asks us to imagine a scenario at which the entire population of China, roughly the same as the neurons in our brain, acts as neurons would and is tasked to control a body such as that they are able to perform the complete functional economy of the brain, as if it was a real human. This is done such as that the China brain human is a functional duplicate where sensory and mental inputs lead to a certain sensory and mental outputs in the same way as a human with mental states. According to functionalism, this functional duplicate would have mental states and qualia. But if we consider the functional duplicate and task the population of China to prick the finger of a body with a pin and act out the functional output of such an action, we would not attribute any qualia to the functional duplicate because we consider there is no mind to feel the pain of the pinprick. Okay, and yet we know introspectively and we can consciously feel the qualia of the mental state of pain. So there must be something different between ourselves and the China brain functional duplicate. Okay, again, bit wordy, you need to keep it clear and robust in terms of responses, in terms of ongoing judgments, but it's well explained. I'll read on. Functionalism is unable to account for this distinction, therefore it cannot give a full account, convincing account of our mental states. Now, that needs to be responded to, which this has not done. Okay. In conclusion, functionalism can account for our mental states convincingly to an extent, love that, in that it is able to account for the multiple realizability of mental states and how mental states depend on each other. It is also able to solve the chauvinism, which is the biggest criticism of MBTIT, and is compatible with the scientific evidence. However, it is unable to account for qualia, which is an intrinsic part of mental states. We are directly aware of our qualia, so it is absurd to deny its existence. Hence, functionalism cannot give a full convincing account of our mental states. Now, what I would suggest, if you want to get in the top band, is reduce the amount of explanation of each of those sections and include something else, perhaps inverted qualia. I think there's too much explanation in there. I think you probably agree. I think you probably switched off a couple of times, which fair play. And I think you need to include inverted qualia and reduce the amount of explanation. Assume the examiner knows what you're talking about when you say the knowledge Mary argument without having to explain it, for example. And this is what the examiner says. This student has produced an essay which argues with sustained intent to a clearly defined conclusion. Functionalism does not give a correct, convincing account of mental states. I think that's true. I think they reference the exact wording of the question throughout. Excellent. The response provides clear evidence of the student's understanding of the central philosophical position, and they are able to bring out the strengths of functionalism before raising objections. And I agree, that's a great way to go. Strengths first. The material deployed was optimal for the purposes of this essay in terms of relevance and quality. I agree, it was all relevant. But evaluation was not sustained, which is exactly what I've just said, e.g. in the form of possible responses from functionalism to the China brain objection. So to get in the top band, I need to see more evaluation. So here's my challenge to you. Can you take this essay question? Length is good, by the way. Can you take this essay question? Does functionalism give a correct or convincing account of mental states? And improve on this essay. That's my challenge to you. Give it a go and I'll do some live marking for you. Thanks very much, everyone.